This is going to be a basic little lesson about numbers and how we read a number based upon place value, digits, and periods. So first we're going to start with the decimal point. Our decimal point is sometimes not even shown, but it is always assumed to be directly to the right of the first number, place value, which we call the ones place value. Directly to the left of the place value is the place value that we call the tens, and directly to the left of that place value is called the hundreds. Now, in order to create numbers in our numbering system, we use the digits. Now, the digits are the numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And we use these digits in these place values to create different numbers. Now you'll notice that I only went through 3, and you'll notice there are commas within each of these after we've reached a third. And that is because the representation is periods, and it is these groupings of 3 that are periods. And these groupings of 3s allow us to read the numbers. So we'll read the number in this digit, or this place value, and then the last place value, and then we say the name of the period. This first one we would call the ones period, but we don't need to read the ones value when we read the period. The second one here is the thousands period, and the third one over here is what we call the millions period. So you'll see that the first value that we run across after every third is the name of a specific period. So let's just go ahead and create a number in this first period. I'm going to put a 2, a 5, and a 9. And the way that I read this is 200, and then I read the two numbers here, 59. So we don't hear the period name in here, but we do hear the hundreds value, the tens value, and then combined with the ones value. Now if I add a place value over here, 1259, now you're going to hear this period name in here. This is 1259, and that would be that number. And then let's go a little bit further out. Let me add in the entire place value here. Now you hear 571,259. And you see when I read this last one, you really did hear that place value, the thousands, as the period name. So we start with groups of 3 numbers where we read the hundreds and then we read the tens and the ones places together. Now the tens and the ones numbers, they're special because they're made up of what we sometimes call these tens groupings being families. And we say the family name and then we say the ones digit with it. And when we write those, we use the family name and then we use a hyphen and then we use whatever the one is. So this one says 59. The family is the 50s family, and then we say the 9. And if I were to write that, I would write 50, and then I would write a hyphen, and then I would write 9, and that's how I write those numbers. So the number here, 259, we'll read that just as it is anywhere that we place it within a number, but then we read the period that it falls in. So for instance, if this 259 were way over here, then what we read is the place value, or the period. So this has zeros in it, and this has zeros in it, and this is the ones period essentially, and then the thousands period, and then this period is our millions period. So when I read this 259, I read just as if it were 259, the number in the ones period, but now I attach the period name millions to it. So this reads 259 million, and that's my number. So that's a little bit about our reading of our numbers and the way that our number system is organized. Now we can go backward from this as well. We can say, okay, well, here's a number written, and then you put it in terms of its name, or vice versa. So once we have discussed the values to the left of the decimal, then we probably want to discuss the values to the right of the decimal. So let's go ahead and just make a discussion about the right-hand side. All right, so what we have here is the decimal, and now we're traveling to the right. Now, traveling to the right is a little bit different than traveling to the left because, first of all, we don't have periods to the right of the decimal. And when we read a number, we read it based upon the last place value. Something else that we're going to be noticing here is that we don't start to the right of the decimal comparable to the left of the decimal. There is nothing called the once. And what you'll notice with all of the place values here is all of them end in the THS sound, the thousandths, the hundredths, the millionths, etc. And so that THS tells us we're to the right of the decimal, but it doesn't start at the once. And the reason it doesn't start at the once is because our system is called a base 10 system. And that base 10 system tells us that as we move to the left or to the right, that we're going to be moving up by factors of 10 or moving down by factors of 10. So our place value to the right of the decimal is the ones place divided by 10, which this is read 1/10. We'll see when we discuss more in fractions. If you go from the ones place and go up, then you're multiplying by 10, and that's why you get the tens place value. And so that's how our system is created. So here to the right of the decimal, we start out with the tenths, and then we go to the hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, 100,000ths, millionths. Can you guess what the next one here would be, the next blue one? If you said 10 millionths, that would be correct. The place values go exactly the same way they do to the right as they did in moving toward the left. The only exception being is that when we move toward the right, we don't start out with oneths. We start out with tenths. So let's practice reading a number. So let's go 0.258. So how do I read this 0.258? I don't read it 0.258. That's not the name of it. It is 258, and then I have to read the place value that this holds. So that third place value is the thousandths, the tenths, the hundredths, the thousandths. So I'm going to read this number as 258 thousandths, and that is how we do it. Now, a quick way of deciding which this is, you can always take a factor of 10 and you see there's 1, 2, 3 decimal places. So you can add 3 decimal places to the number 1 and you'll see that's thousand. So you read this 258 thousandths, and that makes an easy way rather than having to count out what these place values are. How about you try this one on your own? Okay, so what you look at here is kind of like you were imagining this was just a number on its very own, right? So if I'd just written this as a number without a decimal in it, and it'd look like this, and this would say 38,902, and then I will put the place value here, and I can use my little trick, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so this says 100 thousandths. So this says 38,902 hundred thousandths. That one's kind of tricky, huh? But if you put the numbers up here, right, 38902, you'll see that occupies the 100 thousandths place, and that's the one we're going to read. But we have to read the number 38,902 hundred thousandths before we can say the entire number. What happens if we put them together? What happens if I said 259.38902? How would I read that number? Well, that means that we have to put the value in here for the decimal. So this number is read, the numbers to the left of the decimal, 259, and then the decimal is read as and that's really the only place we should be using the word and when we read a number. 259 and 38,902 hundred thousandths, and that's how you read that number. Alright, so that's the basics of reading numbers, writing numbers, and now what I would like to show you is a little bit, or a couple of places where you could go to the web and get some additional help. So let me move this down into view for you. So here is a place about the Indo-Arabic numeration system, and this will tell you more about the way that our numbers are put together and that basis of our number system being these digits 0 through 9 that we had discussed. Now here's another place where you can actually go and do some practice with your place values, and this one has some examples down here at the bottom as well, and then another one from these same people here where you can practice with your place values, and it's a little bit of a Java applet there for you to do some practicing. So that would be 3 different places that you could maybe get some more information on place values if you're having a little bit of a hard time with that. And that can be difficult, especially if you're not used to reading and writing numbers in English.